Sorry for flubbing the name. So we're on for whatever one you want to do next.
Okay, we'll just talk about the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act,
Got it.
and then go into the structured settlement, settlement planning, awards, personal injury type of stuff. All right, and then, okay, let's see. So just to start off, there's a lot of movement that's been happening with this tax bill. On Thursday, I believe that was the day, they introduced the bill that was 429 pages, much longer than I believe the previous 8 pages. So, there's a lot going on, obviously. So, just some key takeaways or some things that you notice that would affect everyday Americans that you think, there's quite a few deductions. They're saying this is really going to help everyday Americans. What are your thoughts on that?
There is a lot of movement, as you just said, and of course there's a lot of detail in 429 pages. I think key takeaways, for me at least, would be corporate rate reduction. How much that will impact everyday Americans, I question. In fact, it may not impact them at all. A change from a 35% rate to a 20% rate is a big change. This has been discussed, the corporate rate change, for many years. It's a big change for business, for big companies, and some small companies. But I don't know how much that will trickle down to everyday Americans. That is a sort of a political debate, I think. Another key change, individual rate reductions. There was a lot of talk about this, that everybody would get a reduction. That really isn't true. And at the top, there was, of course, debate about everybody would be faced with, at worst, a 35% rate. In fact, we have sort of a compression of the tax rates in this bill, and even the so-called millionaire's tax, someone at the over $1 million for a married couple, is still going to pay 39.6, so they don't get a rate reduction. I don't think there's a lot of crying over that, but I'm just saying that not everybody is getting a rate reduction. I think a few other key takeaways would be state and local tax deduction being eliminated. That might change, but presently that is a big one. And so high tax people in high tax states, New York and California, for example, won't be able to deduct their state taxes on their federal tax return. If that sticks, it's a big change, and it could cause some people who are thinking about it to maybe move to another state. Alternative minimum tax, I say, is a huge one. It's awfully hard to describe how that works, but any person who's been paying AMT, alternative minimum tax, in the past knows that it's sort of hard to eyeball. It's sort of an optional alternative tax system, and you compare the regular tax and the AMT. It does impact a lot of people every year. It's been in the law since 1969, so really forever, and it's gotten worse and worse every year, partially with inflation and with sort of extra things added back into AMT. So I would say hard to describe how that impacts people, but I think that's a universally good thing, at least in my view. There are lots of other details, but I would say those, at least for me, are the key ones that I would say people should watch.
Okay, and Robbie mentioned it was a political debate, so obviously there are two different sides to this. Is there any way you can possibly get into if this will deliver, quote, deliver more jobs, fairer taxes, bigger paychecks, as this press release from the Committee on Ways and Means has, so proclaimed?
Yeah, I think that's almost something for economists. I don't know that I know I'm not competent to answer it. I think there are a lot of people disagreeing over that. I believe that the president is probably right, that stimulating the economy and reducing sort of big corporate tax rates is a good thing for America. And probably, I would guess, that would suggest that it's a good thing for everybody. You know, even somebody working for a paycheck, even at a relatively low wage. If big companies are making more money, expanding, happier with America's tax system, they hopefully will not be, going offshore as much as they have in the past. But I can't say that I know that any of that's true. I think, to some extent it's an experiment, and maybe one that's overdue. But time will tell if it gets passed, and if it does, whether everybody will end up benefiting. As you're saying, the powers that be are saying they will.
Okay, and then the big thing for me personally was the fact that these powers that be, as you put it, are claiming that 9 out of 10 Americans will be able to file their taxes on a form as simple as a postcard. Is that really something that can happen? By the way, that's something that's been discussed for years too, although in connection with this bill, I know it's come up again recently. I absolutely don't get that one at all. I think this does not, in my opinion, it doesn't do any of the significant sort of whittling down of complexity that you would need to have to do this sort of really, I must say, attractive idea of simplicity, of something that's real simple. I don't get it. I mean, maybe I just am wrong, but I don't see that any of us is going to be able to do that. Yeah, I don't think so. But, okay, so that's it. Thank you, Rob.
My pleasure.